Cactus 1549, 700, landing 5,000.
Cactus 15.9, departure to contact line, maintain 15,000.
Maintain 15,000, Cactus 1549.
Cactus 15.9, turn left lane 270.
This is Cactus 1539, hit birds, lost thrust on both engines, returning back towards LaGuardia.
Okay, you need to return to LaGuardia. Turn left heading up 220.
220.
Tower, stop your departures, got emergency returning.
Who is it?
It's 1529. He bird strike, he lost the thrust in the engines, he's returning immediately.
Cactus 1529, which engines?
He lost thrust in both engines, he said.
Got it.
Cactus 1529. We can get it for you. Do you want to try to land runway 13?
We're unable. We may end up in the Hudson.
All right, Cactus 15.9. It's going to be left traffic to runway 31.
Unable.
Okay, what do you need to land? Do you want to try to go to Teterboro?
Yes.
Teterboro, Empire. Actually, LaGuardia departure guy, emergency inbound.
Hey, guys.
Cactus 1529 over the George Washington Bridge. Wants to go to the airport right now.
Wants to go to our airport. Check. Does he need assistance?
Yes, it was a bird strike. Can I get him in for runway 1?
Runway 1, that's good.
Cactus 1529, turn right 280. You can land runway 1 at Teterboro.
We can't do it.
Okay, which runway would you like at Teterboro?
We're going to be in the Hudson.
I'm sorry, say again, Cactus? Cactus 15.9, radar contact is lost. You also got Newark Airport up at 2 o'clock in about 7 miles. Eagle 5, 4718, turn left thing 210.
210, 4718. I think he said he was going in the Hudson.
Cactus 1529, you still on?
That was January 15th, 2009. Just almost exactly 6 years ago from the moment we're recording this podcast. Hi, this is the PreAccident podcast, and I'm Todd Conklin. And today we're going to start by talking about failure. Failure is important, and the redefinition of safety success for the new view requires a new understanding of failure. Now, I'm going to suggest to you that failure falls into 3 distinct parts. Every incident, every mishap, every accident breaks itself into 3 very separate parts. There's the context of the event. That's everything that took place that leads up to the consequence of the event. That's the bad thing that happened. And then there's the retrospective way the organization sees the event after it takes place. And that radio clip of the Miracle on the Hudson is a really good example, a place for us to start. In fact, a place for us to apply this frame to that event. Because everybody knows, unless you lived in some kind of cave, that Captain Sully Sullenberger was an amazing pilot. And it would take an amazing pilot to land an Airbus A320 on the Hudson in the middle of the day, in the middle of the January in 2009. In fact, landing a plane safely on water really is almost never done. In fact, you don't land planes on water, you crash planes on water. But in this case, Sully amazingly was able to bring that ship down. And I'm sure you know lots about this. I mean, the details of this event are amazing. We could go probably 25 hours just talking about this event. But I want to talk about it in the frame of context, consequence, and retrospect. Because the notion that this event was miraculous is a retrospective value. The event itself becomes most interesting in its context. And what's crazy is that the consequence of this event was really virtually nothing. Every person got away. Nobody died. There were some minor injuries. I'm sure there was loss of property. I know there was loss of equipment, but ultimately the cost on this could have been so much worse, remarkably so much worse. What's really interesting to me is the least interesting part of this accident, the least interesting part of this mishap was the actual crash on the Hudson. Every other part of this mishap is remarkably interesting. And that's where we want to go. In fact, our premise is, and I want you to think about this, I'm going to suggest we spend too much time worrying about the consequence and way too much time reconstructing the retrospect and not enough time understanding the context. Because Miracle on the Hudson or not, and I'm fine with us calling it the Miracle on the Hudson. I actually think it makes a remarkably interesting story even more poetic. But I'm not sure it was a miracle. In fact, I would suggest in context, we had an amazingly qualified pilot who was amazingly interested in emergent responses, who was an expert in crew resource management. We had a remarkable first officer who was able to move freely and make incredibly important operational decisions. And we know that oftentimes in emergencies, perfect decisions aren't always made. But in this case, they almost completely were. And we had a plane that absolutely was able to maintain level and land almost perfectly on the Hudson. We also had a river that during that time of day, in that section of the river, was especially idle. Not a lot of boat traffic. In fact, no boat traffic where the plane ditched. We were in a position where the bridges across the Hudson really served to frame the accident, but didn't serve as additional hazards. And the tide was perfectly aligned for this kind of activity. In fact, if you ask me to think about this, I would tell you that many, many, many things went right. And really only two things went wrong: the left engine and the right engine. Because so many things happened right, and because those right things happened not in a linear order, but in fact kind of in a holistic order. Many things happened right, and they all happened right at the same time. Now, retrospectively, heroes were made, and poetic titles were created. An incredible video was produced, and remarkable images were etched in the minds of everybody in the world, certainly in the United States, absolutely in New York, and anybody who's ever flown a plane, anybody who's ever been on an Airbus A320 has to think about this. But the challenge is that where we look at this event is how we understand this event. In retrospect, it was a miracle. In context, it was a combination of many normal things happening all for the good simultaneously. And what's least interesting is the happen. In fact, what happened, although miraculous, I'm not going to deny that, that really isn't terribly interesting. That leaves our discussion wide open. Because our challenge is to really help our organizations not live in the consequence, the bad thing that took place, not live in the retrospect, because that's kind of what we do already, but in fact to move the bar so we operate in the context portion of an event. Now, an accident, if you ask Eric Hallnagel, and I love this definition, is the unexpected combination of normal performance variability. In fact, Hallnagel goes on to say that accidents don't happen because workers gamble and lose. Accidents happen because what's about to happen the worker believes is simply not possible. Or what's about to happen the worker has no idea is causally connected to what the worker is currently doing. Or what is about to happen is unfathomable operationally. It's never happened before, therefore it'll never happen again. Now, Hallnagel's notion that an accident is an unexpected combination of normal performance variability, I think gives us something to think about. Because I want to tell you, I think success for Sully and his crew and his passengers was an unexpected combination of normal performance variability. In fact, the things that cause accidents are also the things that cause amazing successes. And the alignment in this case is remarkably interesting to think about. It's not the unusual things that hurt us. It's the normal things, when combined in unexpected ways, that give us outcomes that are less than desirable. An accident isn't some alien, freaky experience. Birds hit engines all the time. The accident is the sum total of an unexpected combination of a normal experience. Many birds, in fact, a multitude of birds, hitting the engines, both engines, at the same time while the airplane is in takeoff, really created the situations where both of the engines actually flamed out simultaneously. Now, I started with the radio clip because I think the radio clip for this accident is remarkably interesting. It's dramatic. What I think's remarkable and dramatic about this radio clip is not that people are freaking out, but in fact quite the opposite. That people are desperately trying to understand as best they can and as quickly as they can what's currently going on so they can respond appropriately to the current conditions. It's worth listening to. It's definitely worth starting this podcast with because I think this helps us build the case. An accident is the unexpected combination of normal performance variability. Events divide themselves into three sections. The context, that's everything that leads up to the consequence. That's section 2, the bad thing that happened. And then finally, the retrospective way we understand this event. Miracle on the Hudson is a retrospective value. But so would the belief that the right pilot, the right time, the right plane, and the right people were there were all miraculous. That's a retrospective value as well, because in fact, all those things were true before the accident took place. The right pilot, the right piece of equipment, the right time, the right place on the river, the right place between the bridges. Our challenge is to understand that variability is what we manage. And safety and reliable performance is our ability to manage predictable and safe operations in a highly varying and unpredictable world. And that's what this example shows us. Our challenge is amazing. We go out into the world and we help people become more safe. But we don't do that by asking them not to fail. We do that by creating systems where when the failure happens, we have the right people, the right equipment, the right timing, and the right place. All of that lives in the context. Everything about an accident is on the front end of the event, not on the back end of the event. When you think about failure, the first thing you have to do is think about how your organization responds to failure. Sidney Dekker talks about that in almost all his books, but certainly it's a key foundation of the field guide. Take that one step further and say, once we understand what a failure is, then we can begin to talk about how we manage failure and, most importantly, how we redefine failure within our organizations. That's our challenge. And that's today's discussion. It's a little podcast, and it's not really an interview, but it is a remarkable experience to listen to that tape one more time. Think about it. Failure redefined. It's everything. Thanks for your time. This is the PreAccident Podcast. My name's Todd Conklin. As always, tell your friends and subscribe, and most importantly, be safe.